let me open it up to those who are here. Do you want to respond to what Elahi and Gail have said? And I would appreciate it, as Mary Rose has done, raising your hand so we can recognize one another. And please be mindful of the time facing all of us. Be as concise as you can so we can get many voices in. So Mary Rose, please go ahead.
I am so excited and thrilled to hear what Elahi and Gail have said to us, because I am just so frustrated with these working in silos. And I think the problem is because nonprofits in the United States are nonprofit corporations, and we have to compete with each other for finances and the space in media and in front of other governments and funders. So I think that is an issue. Nonprofits are under assault thanks to DOJ. And I think that the issues that people, I've been living in rural America. I've lived in cities. I grew up in a suburb. So I lived in almost all of those three spaces. And what I'm seeing here from a U.S. grassroots perspective is the struggle for housing, for dealing with violence against women, safety, food, education, broadband. We're finally getting broadband, I hope. They dug up the streets 2 weeks ago, so maybe they're going to get the broadband working. But the issue is we need to get back to why are we not getting CEDAW in some of these rural areas and suburbs? And I think the reason is this was a couple years ago, I tried to get a mayor and vice mayor interested, and they said, oh, this was a casual conversation on the street, and I don't want to name names, but they said, oh, we have 2 women on the police force. We're integrated with women. And it's like, and then you talk to the women like who are working in nonprofit organizations. Oh, we don't have time for that. Or I don't understand. The UN has nothing to do with us. I mean, rural America and most of this country, half this country, I should say, who voted, those who voted, not everybody got a chance to vote or cared to vote, voted out of fear and voted out of misinformation. So they think that this is something that does not pertain to them. And I would like to see webinars or how CEDAW can improve women's lives with examples, actual examples that are happening now on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Rose. And Alice, would you go next?
I have some very narrow expectations that we, as all the representatives, can agree on one set of data collection. In other words, how many cities do we have and where are they in the process? Universal, standardized, we need that because we're all working off of different settings and numbers. I think that's really important. And I think if we had sort of a statement of agreement where we all agreed on these certain things so that we're speaking with one voice, but with variety of applications at the local level. And I would say Cities for CEDAW is important because with the ERA, you need the CEDAW at the local level.
Alice, can I just clarify, when you say one set of data collection, are you thinking gender equality in general or about CEDAW in particular?
How many cities have met these standards? What are the standards we all agree on? But how many cities? Right now, we, with WIN, say there's 20 and there's 90 in the process, but then Young and other people say different numbers, and it's confusing when you go to meetings because they're looking at different websites. And if you look at the website, it's really not clear.
Okay. Thank you, Alice. And Eileen, could you go ahead?
Hi. First, I want to say I'm sorry I missed our first speaker, and I may be repeating things that were said. I want to first piggyback on what Alice said. I've brought it up in the past that here in Broward County, we had 31 cities for CEDAW that came under the umbrella of Broward County. And I know that um, Hawaii, I believe it was, we had a whole state. So I think that if we're counting cities, we need to count cities. Once we mix counties with cities and states as individual entities, it kind of throws the count off and disorients the person, especially the person who's new to looking at the whole process. I'm a child of the civil rights movement. I marched as a kid with Dr. Martin Luther King, and they now have my name engraved on the Civil Rights Foot Soldier Memorial. So I'm used to grassroots movement. Who knew that my grandchildren would one day see my name engraved at Clay and Calvert Street in Annapolis, Maryland, with awards 50 years later being presented by the governor, the mayor, and the county. So everything we do, we need to have a track record in writing. And I do believe that collecting those stats is very important. I also think that we need to do, as chair of partnerships and collaborations for UNA USA for several years, I've always suggested that we go to our unions, especially the labor unions where women are very much represented because they're being hit twice with all of what's going on in terms of discrimination in employment and Roe v. Wade being thrown out. And the librarians, anything we do with educators, we need to make sure we're reaching out to the librarians as well. When I went into Broward County Commission with our group from the Human Rights Board and our women here in Broward County, we came together, representatives of all of those groups, and it helps a lot to make sure that we were ready to think globally and act locally. In fact, the librarians now here in Florida, books have been banned. We're dealing with throwing away AP African American history. We have new laws now that if you see a police officer doing something inappropriate, you now have to be 25 feet away if you take a picture with your phone as opposed to 6 feet away. Who can measure that? And how are the police accountable for demonstrations? People are afraid to march anywhere now. Um, I also think that we need to use the ALEC model where if we have attorneys working for CEDAW, I'm not an attorney, but this helped a lot working with Broward County Human Rights Board. We had attorneys, and they're already models. And once we have policy statements that can easily go from group to group to group, it makes it easier to present a resolution or to present, in our case, an ordinance to be voted upon. So we have to be ready with our boots on the ground, whichever way we're going to march, and we have to have as many accurate statistics and collaborators as possible, from my humble perspective.
Thank you, Eileen. Mhm.